Howdy. Okay, I promised the 4th of July hat or something in the last video. So here it is. It's spangled glory. It's a little bit small for my head actually, but I haven't worn it yet, and so whatever. Instead of some of the other ones, of course, this one having no real ear protection, but I'm not doing a hat video right now. And for the complete rundown of what a cowboy wears, I had been going through videos for personal interest more than necessity. I already bought 2 pairs of, well, one's at the bottom. I already did unboxing videos of pretty much all of these, and some of the ones that I returned already, like Abilene, Tacovas, Chizos. Most of these are older ones that don't fit, but I'm going to show them again briefly. Hopefully this video won't go on too long, but it's called an overview, so I want to try and cover the brands that I'm somewhat familiar with, even though there's a gazillion boot brands. What I've been finding is what I already kind of suspected, what I think I talked about at some point before, but I'll put it up front here to get out of the way. I think a lot of the boots at the lower price points are basically the exact same boots. So when you get somebody saying, well, what's the best boot under $300? There might not really be one. It might be what you think looks cool or what you think fits best. From what I'm kind of finding, I was watching the Rose video, or rewatched a couple of his older ones, and he was saying everybody pretty much has a pair of Justin boots. I've never had a pair of Justin boots. So I've ordered, even though I'm in a no-buy year, I ordered some Justin boots, and I've never had Dan Post boots either. I've ordered some of those. I don't know how the sizing is going to be. I did not order Cody James, which is kind of I don't know if they're a specific Boot Barn brand, but they're through Boot Barn. One of the brands he showcased, I couldn't find them on Boot Barn at all. I don't know. I didn't go to all the websites for all the boots. That would take forever. I went to Boot Barn and looked briefly at what I didn't already have and what might be in my price range, and I was disappointed to find that most of the Dan Post boots don't come in my size. They start at a larger size, at least on their website. Again, if I went to the Dan Post website, there might be a bigger selection. So don't rule it out if you have smaller feet. I don't know. I didn't order the Cody James because it said it was calf leather, which I'm not positive if the Thursday boots is calf leather or not, but I typically don't want calf leather. I want bullhide or whatever. Lucchese, another brand I have never tried. There's a little bit of an upcharge with them for USA made, I guess, and some other things. But the Rose ones that he complains about being too costly and stuff aren't the lowest price point boots they offer. They have lower ones, but another brand that doesn't come in a smaller size. He was just talking about Durango. I didn't look at them yet. A lot of these newer boots I've complained about elsewhere, which is why I bought the Thursday boots, which I'll talk about again in a minute, even though I unboxed, I think, 2 pairs of those already. But only one model. Thursday offers 3 models. One's a roper, one is a square toe, and one's a round toe. I only want round toes. I didn't buy any square toes. And the Durango that he just showed was another square toe, so I just was like, no thanks. Right. I do have a square toe. This was lowest so far in the competition on that channel. These are about the lowest rated roper boots that you can get, but I bought them a long time ago when they were like $80 or something, not what they are now. I don't think they've gone up too much considering the inflation. I think they're at under 200 still. In the review of this. This is the Ariat Rambler. I said that this I thought was acrylic when I believe that what they meant by balance man-made is this. This might actually be real leather after all, but embossed. So you can kind of see that texture. That might be not legitimate texturing. I guess that was where I got confused. But overall, he considered these a, very low quality buy compared to some other brands. But one of the other brands he loved, like I said, I don't know where to buy them. I don't know if that's from Amazon or what. And I don't care because I'm not really interested in roper boots. I only got these because I thought they were kind of cool with the floppy jacket leather. And again, I thought this was plastic because one of the pairs I have in here, they are synthetic uppers and then leather lowers. And then the other Ariat boots I had, again, I think I made the mistake where they do have a trucker outsole, not a leather traditional cowboy outsole. And so they might be leather all the way, but it doesn't matter because I have 2 pairs of them and neither of them fit. These still fit. The square toe helped that. So when my feet spread in the 15 years or whatever since I first got these, the other 2 I outgrew them, and these I can still wear, and they still can come off without any effort, whereas I've had effort with some of the other ones, which is kind of why I'm phasing traditional pull-on boots out entirely. So why I just ordered some other ones is strictly for this channel, not because I needed them. But I'm always curious. I like to see what's what and this and that. So while I'm holding these up, we'll go over, kind of the, heel. And of course the heel stack height can vary. Outsole, insole is the part that you can't see. And these do have a pair of Dr. Scholl's in them on top of the other original heel, and they're fused from my own wear. Yeah, I don't think I can show anything. It's real hard with the angle of the light and the position of the camera. And this particular leather being not cooperative, but they are the Ariat brand. And so you got the vamp or whatever, you got the heel counter and the back stay and the seams and the pull tabs and you can get your thumb in there instead of the holes on the side of the shaft. And so that's your basic boot, not a whole lot to it. And then the inside the guts, he cuts them in half, I don't. So I'm kind of flying blind, just going by what they do. So so that's 4 brands I mentioned. Cody James, like I said, when I ordered the Justin boots, I ordered 2 in 2 different sizes because I wasn't entirely sure about the sizing. And rather than screw around with it, I just said, okay, fine, put another pair on the credit card and get them here and I'll figure out the sizing. Instead of going to Boot Barn and hoping they might have one in my size and the style that I would want, blah, blah, blah. Like when I take them back, like I said, because I'm automatically going to have to take a pair back now, I'll try and see if I can try on some of these other ones. Some other brands that I haven't tried are Watson, Finoglia, JW, Botas Nueva Vizcaya, Anderson Bean. I'm not going to be buying boots from all of these people. I'm just naming them. Then there was a Tim's, and I didn't know if that was a distributor or a boot company, and a Carter's Boots, which I'm pretty sure is a distributor. It's not Boot Barn, that I've never shopped with them. So I'll throw these names out there because these have been mentioned in some of the videos I've been watching. Then there was Olathe, Olathe, I don't know. And Hire, I crossed Hire off the list, and I crossed, what was the name of them? The Canadian ones. I crossed them off the list too as being looked like substandard. I don't know. Then there was Ruho. I haven't looked into them. Stallion in El Paso. I'm just naming names. Again, most of what I'm finding are dressy boots, not really good high durability work boots. They might be decent quality dressy boots for a lower price than a Tecovas, but not necessarily what I had said about the Tony Lama ones when I was all mad at Chizos or Tecovas or whoever it was. Both Chizos costing twice as much as Tecovas and being almost the exact same boot, but a lot nicer boot and with that giant mattress insole. That's their gimmick. But an insole, I'm not paying $300 for an insole. I'd rather have the Tecovas. And like I said, instead of the Tecovas, I sent those back and got the Thursday. Cut to the chase, right? Oh, Boule. Is that the other one? Boule? I think it was Boule. I can't find it written on any of these, but somewhere written down is that one, and you'll see it in the other video if you've watched the other any of the other series of the videos that they're doing where they're cutting them up and comparing them. He gave an edge to Chizos over Lucchese, which the boot he picked at that price point and yes, but again, Lucchese has boots at lower price points and they're made in USA. So I would still say that that's the better of the two companies, whereas Chizos only offers like 3 types of boots or something. They really didn't have that much to choose from, and the fit was completely horrible. I couldn't even get my foot in the thing, and I wasn't going to jerk around sending boot after boot back and forth to try and figure out what was the right one. I already did that 2 or 3 times with Tecovas and got nowhere. So yeah, I lost all interest. Whereas again, Lucchese, I would have given them the nod. So the other thing that I got, I've already done a review of this before, was the Packer boot, where now instead we're doing a lace-up construction, but we're losing the shaft height. You can order a 12-inch. I don't know how much more it will cost and how much more it will really cover to really worry about it, but I wasn't using these as riding boots. I got these with a walking sole and more for looks and just ease of getting them on and off because, like I said, the constrictiveness or whatever of the part where your foot has to slide through here. It's not getting them on. That's the problem if they're the right size. It's getting them off again at the end of the night. That's the real issue. I have to have somebody else to pull off at least one of my boots so far with the Thursday boots. Whereas this, I can just take it off and not have to worry about sleeping in my boots or cutting my boot off my foot. But this is totally not the same exact cowboy construction. Here we've got the double stitch, whereas these, I believe, there is a channel stitch underneath, but then they're glued. So I don't know how resolable these are, blah, 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 how long they're supposed to last, blah, blah. These have lasted me a plenty long time because I just don't wear them all that much because they're not the style of cowboy boot I prefer. But like I said, I've been wearing them pretty often this last year or so because I found out that none of these other ones fit, and these are convenient because they slip on and off easy, unlike some of the other ones. So I have actually been wearing those to do odd things once in a while, but I don't use them as work boots because if you're shoveling stalls or whatever, and you know they're just going to get gross, then why spend extra? I mean, he can say that they're the cheap things, but they're also the cheap things that are less than $200 or whatever. So yeah, if you're doing manure or something, then don't worry about it. Although they might not be as comfortable as maybe a wedge sole or something, but most wedge soles you don't have any traction at all. Those a little bit of traction. I wouldn't use them as hiking shoes either. I wouldn't use these as hiking shoes if I had my choice. But this, of course, has this extra Pacific Northwest arch support that, again, is more of a walking shoe feature than a riding shoe feature. So you can still see where the heel is plenty tall enough to go in a stirrup and all that, I would say. But you're losing some of the heel with the curvature here. And if you're really in the saddle all day, you don't really need that much arch support, probably none, or very little. If you're doing both, you know, on the horse and off the horse kind of stuff, chores, maybe you'll want the arch support, but I don't consider this a riding boot. So Nick's introduced their new limited edition one that they've been hyping on the other channels, and the leather nice and thick, like this leather, way better than, you know, a lot of these flimsy boots that I complained about before, and we'll talk about again in a minute. Obviously there's nothing snake proof about this at all. This is, you know, we're not taking this out and, you know, expecting it to perform the same way as something like this, where the leather is, if you can see the collar, whereas this you can barely, you know, there's no flopping going on here. So they did offer now a limited edition standard pull-on boot with the taller shaft and the thing. It's not an attractive boot, but for some reason they included the arch support, from what I can tell, which makes absolutely no sense. I won't be buying a pair, not just because they're $700, but because I don't think they're proper boots for what they're meant to be for. I think they're kind of a confused concept. This, on the other hand, as I talked about, I ordered this in the wide width, so they don't look very cowboy at all. They're not a square toe. And the Palouse ones are basically the same as this. They're a pretty wide round toe. So they're ugly, but functional, and strictly functional. Like, you can't dance in them, I don't think. I think they have this same outsole, so this won't slide on a dance floor. And you can probably ride in them, but probably, I don't know, that might be an issue. Yada, yada, yada. And of course, the other pair I got the eyelets instead of the speed hooks. I'll talk about that in a minute. And of course, a lot of people may not like the whole gusset tongue thing. Again, I have trouble getting in and out of the pull-on boots. So they'll look cowboy-ish when you cover them over with jeans or whatever. And they'll do what I want them to do, even though, again, I'm not wearing them to a dance floor. When I tried to make them more like cowboy boots, I already did an unboxing of these. So briefly, exact same boot, but with a narrower toe. And I'll have to show this one again next to the other boot. They did the toe bugs. The one is kind of cockeyed. I complained about this. Yeah. You can see it's not centered. The one is centered and the other is not, because they put the stitching on first and then stretched the boot over the last or whatever, and so it came out wrong. And they didn't angle it. They put the toe angle all from the side instead of coming to a point from both sides. You have this going on where it's sharp here and straight here, and so it makes for a less comfortable fit. And this particular one, I should have got a wide, but that would have ruined the pointness of the toe. So it's a little too tight to really wear comfortably. But as I've said already before, I didn't buy these to be all day, everyday boots. I bought these to be nicer, kind of more showy boots, because that's why I got the prettier leather instead of the standard work leather. So you can see the prettier leather and the eyelets and the da-da-da-da-da. So I'm not entirely unhappy with them, but I'm not entirely happy with them either. I could have sent them back, but again, then I think they would have just looked less like traditional cowboy boots. So I figured, all right, I'll keep them and suffer, but I'll never make that mistake again, because same as the Palouse boots, or whatever you're calling them, the Palouse. I think what they do very well is logger boots, and that's basically a sledgehammer. When you ask them to make a corkscrew, they give you an effed up sledgehammer. They don't know how to make an actual corkscrew. So it's decent. It's still got the double row of stitching. It's, still got this instead of a one piece backstay or whatever. The Palaus have a little bit more cowboy features like this. They're just cut weird. They don't look as normative, and I don't think they put any toe bug. The toe bug is supposed to, I'm pretty sure, help with the correct creasing and stuff. So when you have one that's strictly decorative and in the wrong place, it really doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And I asked them to put it down on the toe, and they politely told me to, go screw myself, basically. I've talked about this already, but I might as well talk about it again now. But the heel straps are nice leather, and then you got them. Again, you don't have to get this outsole. You can get a leather one if you so choose. Like I said, I want to keep this boot out. So, compare it with the other ones at the bottom later. So then, Tony Lama, they've changed their models and things. They don't offer this model anymore in this size. I couldn't find them. But these are too small. But as you can see, the point, pretty close. But I can't get my foot in this. So you can see that this isn't that much bigger. So my foot going in this is really getting smashed enough, and I can't even get it in this one anymore. But you can see kind of where again, it's not quite as straight here. This is maybe not the best example. Like I said, the Thursday ones that actually fit, you'll see it a little better. But yeah, I was saying, there's a lot much stiffer up here. Obviously, we're not flopping around like the Ariats again. I bought these a long time ago, and they fit briefly at the time, and now they don't. But you got the pull tabs. You got the decorative stitching that you're not going to get on any thicker Pacific Northwest leather stuff. They're not even going to try. You'll break our machine, go away. But again, your single piece backstay, and then just decoration, and then the seams on the side. And here's where other people are complaining that, you've got an unfinished seam kind of running down. Can you see that? You can kind of see it. Unfinished seam kind of running down the length of the thing, and then no lining here. But I didn't really mind that. Although I guess for a more elegant, refined, expensive prestige brand, but this was like $150 boot, so no, I wasn't expecting frills and features. It was just one of the 3 brands that came in my size at the time, because again, I had small feet, and so now they don't even come in this size. Good luck. Or the size or 2 above that might fit me. They don't come in that size anymore either. But again, I'm pretty sure this is not calf skin, because it's not squishing down or anything like the Thursday boots do. And this is nice. And the ones he showed on the thing, he said that the bite of the rattlesnake could still go through. And it might on this too, but they just do feel more durable, whether or not they actually are. Again, maybe I'm fooling myself. Like I said, I already did an unboxing of this. But overall, a brand that I really want to like, but don't know if they'll ever come in my size again. Apparently, though, part of the reason I'm doing this video is I guess Justin bought this company, and I guess they just don't want to be the brand that killed another famous legacy brand or whatever. So why they don't make Tony Lamas into even more of the luxury boot instead of having them fight at different price points with their own other Justin boots beats me. I would either turn this into the dirt cheap garbage brand and make my Justin boots the good brand, or turn these into the elegant brand that you're going to want, and for your fashion show or whatever, and make the money back that way. I don't know. I'm not in charge of these decisions, but they seem to be silly to undercut your own other products or whatever with 2 products that are essentially the same, and all of them galloping after each other to put out more and more square-toed boots, which, again, is, you know, maybe more comfortable for some people, maybe a little more functional. Obviously you can see the width of this boot is just wider than this boot that has nothing to do with the narrowness of the toe. But this is more of the size of my shape of my foot. So that. But if this came to a point here, it wouldn't be smashing my toes that much more if this width was still intact. And it would look a lot better than this dopey, mopey S-kicker, as they say, version. But again, if I was actually shoveling stalls, I probably wouldn't wear the $700 nice leather ones unless it was an emergency. And that brings us to what I was talking about before. And again, I've done a review of these where this is, I'm pretty sure, not leather at all. This is plastic. This is leather. And somewhere in those Tony Llamas were actually still made in America, USA. Now I don't think they are, but the Lucchese's still are in El Paso. Let's see what says there. Laredo men's. Yeah, another 6.5. So these were from Leather Vamp, Fox Other Materials, and Fox Other Materials. Man-made, made in China. So does that seem like something leather should be able to do? I'm pretty sure that's vinyl. And it has stitching, but nothing particularly interesting. These were just cheap. These were extra pointy. These do kill my feet, but they do still kind of fit because they're, again, a little bit wider here than some of the, you saw how narrow the Tony Llamas looked. But with the metal toe ram, kind of an 80s rocker look more than a boot feature I necessarily want. And these came with, yeah, the thin conchos. One thing I didn't, and this is, I don't know if this is supposed to hold your stirrups or if it's supposed to look like it could hold stirrups. I never mentioned before, because again, I'm not using these as riding boots, but here you have obviously almost no stirrup shelf for that to rest on. This, not really much better, honestly. So with those Palaus ones, I don't know if they have any spur shelf. This one's a little maybe better, but I think if you were to talk to Nick's and request that you get a little bit wider out here, like if you measured your stirrups and said, I need 1/8 of an inch more or whatever, even 1/4 of an inch more, they might be more willing to do it than, again, making sure your toe bug is centered. But don't quote me on that. And Frank's also makes Packer boots and whites. I don't know. I've heard Frank's is supposed to be the best with customization stuff like that, but none of that is in the menu. You go to the picture and it says 8-inch height, and you're like, no, I don't want an 8-inch height. I want a 12-inch height, you know, and there's no place for you to adjust that. So I think you have to phone in anything and know exactly what you want in like immense detail. They don't seem to offer like a lot of suggestions like, oh, you know what other people like is like they never do that. They just kind of like leave you hanging, and I'm like, okay, I know a pretty good amount of stuff about boots, but I don't know everything about boots. But then they tell me that they won't rebuild anybody else's boot. They might rebuild another Pacific Northwest company's boot if it's a stitch down style that's the same as they do, but nothing else, which also was kind of a rude awakening because I thought they were more attuned to that sort of thing than I guess they are. So similarly, but a slightly better version, this kind of thing. But again, I don't know if you're supposed to hang stirrups off of this or if they're just for show. So I did a review of these before already. This was another brand that I bought at the time because they were one of the 3 companies that would fit me that, of course, are absolutely like tiny now. They can't fit in this at all. but it also has that stupid toe rand, but it also has a heel rand, but the heel rand is covering some of your stirrup shelf. So that's maybe an issue. I don't know. And this time we have, I already know it's crushed pig leather. It's worse than calf leather. It's, you know, this is at least steer hide. It's just unlined and then structured and blah, blah, blah. This is meant to scrunch down and just look terrible on purpose because you're trying to look like Slash instead of, whatever. If you don't know who Slash is, he's a guitar player who wears boots that look kind of like this, but probably cost way more than these were. These were like $150 or something at the time. But again, my main problem with these is just they're too small, they're too narrow. I can't get my foot in them. But again, we have, a leather and a rubber here. We have a channeled yada yada, which is kind of the standard for thing. We have, no arch support. You're not going to have trouble with your stirrup there. You got more than enough heel clearance. And you have your single backstay, but it doesn't go up significantly because, again, that would add structure here that you might actually want. So I doubt this model is still around. This brand might still be in existence, but it's not quite as weird of the vinyl. Leather upper, all other materials man-made, so I'm not sure what those other materials, again, they mean. I'm pretty sure, like I said, this is pig, though, so they might be meaning this, and this might not be leather and just meant to look like leather. That would be my first guess. That this is some kind of plastic painted to look like leather. And the toe has a stiff little cap way down in there to keep this shape, which some of the others might not have. These definitely, I did not put a cap in the toe. I left this as a soft toe. This has a cap to keep that structure. So there's a plastic doohickey there, which makes sense because, again, a square toe being a big volume kind of area without something like that there, the whole thing is going to sag and collapse. But so, yeah, so these are all really low price point boots. They're not, exotic skins or alligators or ostriches or anything of that nature. They're what I could get from Scheffler's on the cheap at the time, just a fit. There's not a lot of. So I was watching another channel some months ago, and they were saying that, like I think kind of hinted at already, it's kind of like everything in this price range is basically the same, and then there's all this stuff that may or may not be overpriced, but won't be any better for durability. It's just an increase in looks, Chizos and Lucchese's and alligators and all that stuff. You can pay for it if you think it's worth it because you like the look of it, but it's not going to be a better work boot. The other option being custom boots, which are, you're talking probably over $1,000, even more than these, which is, some people call this custom, but it's technically made to order, MTO. And I always say that because, again, paying the same for this boot as this boot when this leather is grungier and whatever, and this leather is obviously much prettier, it's kind of a lot to pay for a boot that you're going to just kind of trash around in. But on the other hand, if you want them to be durable, you kind of have to suck it up. Whereas this, again, I didn't get this for my all-day, everyday boot, so I'm going to get less use out of it, even though I paid. So which one is actually the better value? I paid the same amount for this, or about the same amount for this, for a boot that I'm not going to wear all day, every day. I don't know. You just kind of have to figure that out for yourself. But again, if you are doing heavy work in your boots, this style or other style, I still recommend having 2 or 3 pairs and rotating them so you don't get, mildew in them, especially if they're expensive. But of course, it's harder to afford that if, when you're going from $70 pair of boots to $700 pair of boots, it's hard to get that second pair of boots to rotate them. But again, if you're going to be doing manure or cement or something where you know you're destroying your boots, then getting boots for less than $200 or even $100, like a wedge sole that's $90, makes more sense if you know they're going to be destroyed in 3 months. It doesn't matter how durable they are because the actual work you do, it doesn't care that they're good leather. So these, again, I bought in 2 colors at the time. These were the Ariat trucker boots, kind of a no frills, almost a, not quite a sneaker outsole because it still has a real heel on it instead of a roper heel. My hands in the way. So they do have a real heel stack. They're not quite as tall of the shaft as some of the other ones, but a decent shaft. And I liked the fact that they were plain and boring at the time, but I didn't understand that I wouldn't be able to dance on a dance floor in these. So after buying 2 pairs and hardly ever wearing them, that's why I had to turn around and buy the Tony Lamas and the Laredos, sorry. Which the Laredo thing is in the wrong boot. But again, not a squishy calf skin thing at all. A nice durable shaft, a nice durable thing. They're not as thick and awesome as they could be or should be or you'd want them to be. But again, for the price, they were like $150. So I was like, oh, 2 pairs, that's not that much even at the time. I'm sure they're more now if they still offer this model. I didn't look it up. They're probably at least $250 now or somewhere in that range. So it'd be like closer to $500 if you bought a blue one or a black one and a brown one. I don't think they offer blue. But again, the stitching worked nice, but very understated. The pull tabs, good, stiff, solid, not crap like some of the other ones. The little backstay thing comes up adequately. And I did wear them, just not enough to do much more than kind of crease them a bit. I didn't hardly wear the heel stack very much down at all. Because I wasn't using them as much other than I bought them for one purpose and then kind of used them for walking shoes a little bit, but not a ton. Put you here for a minute. So comparable-ish. Now again, the Cody James ones said that they were calf skin. And again, might be slightly more expensive than these. I'm not sure. They are more expensive than these, which is, of course, the Thursday Maverick, I believe. Where I've worn these, twice now. And they've smushed down a little bit. They're not quite, they're definitely not as stiff as these. But they're not quite as floppy, flimsy as you saw the Laredos or the other, well, especially the Dingoes with the pig leather. So you have, comparing to the Ariat, a lower heel, slightly, little less stirrup room, but a real leather bottom. And again, you can see this pair, it's too small, and this pair that is correct. Not by much, but enough. Like I said, to be able to get them on and off. I can't get this on. I can get this. I'm holding the wrong one. I cannot get this on. I can get this on, but I have trouble getting it off. Okay. But you can see that Thursday actually has quite a bit of extra toe bug detailing. This not being in a terrible location, though, it's right about where it's creasing. So a little bit more decorative here. And you can see it's creasing not exactly where this is. So it's not exactly in the right place to be as functionally useful as some of the other ones, but it looks nice, I guess. even though it's totally subdued, just black stitching. A little bit more black stitching. These full tabs, you know, decent, nothing wrong with them. The leather, a little bit more, not quite as thick and chunky, but not totally hopeless, I guess. So that's why I settled on these when I was buying the boots last year. They do have the kind of foam pour-on insole instead of the removable insole, which if I was getting them resoled and stuff, I might try to get some of that replaced with leather or at least cork, whatnot. Don't know. The heel stack being nothing to write home about, but tall enough to be mostly functional. The shelf being, I would say, wide enough for if you're not too worried about spurs. Whereas this one, none, almost none. This one's slightly more. I didn't really mention the spur thing in the previous videos, but nobody's commented or asked about it and whatever. You got kind of the burnished. I know there's a lot of glare in here today because I usually try to record earlier in the morning. There's kind of a burnished toe look and whatnot. And like I said, the backstay. Like I said, I wish I had the NYX ones here so I could compare exactly what the backstays and the front bits look like, that you can see where they're cut, where they're just less aesthetically appealing. I'm sure they're plenty functional. Whether or not I could get the thing on and off, I don't know. Because again, with the thicker leather, it might be even more of an issue than these. These aren't even that thick of a leather, and like I said, I can get the left one off, but the right one, I always need somebody to pull it off for me. But so what I was talking about earlier with the Packer boot, you can kind of see that slope, or you can definitely see that the Thursday boot is just bigger overall. And like I said, I can get my foot in it, but not out. And so the fact that I can get my foot out of this one is only because it has laces. Otherwise, I would have had to cut this boot off of me. There's no way this tiny little toe room thing would work at all. It's not quite as short as I was kind of showing it before. You can see they're about the same length, but the width is noticeable where it flares out and the other one just comes at a point. Does that make sense? So definitely a much more comfortable experience. They're a little bit loosey at first, and then your feet kind of swell, but they don't offer wide widths and narrow widths and all that kind of thing. So I saw one video where the guy was complaining they're no good because they didn't come in his width. Okay, that's just your weird feet. That has nothing to do with the rest of us. I can wear them just fine. I just can't get them off, or at least unassisted. But I think that will ease up with time and not be such an issue. So I don't know if there's any aspects of the things, and then like I said, this has the channeled. You can't really see it; it's kind of worn a bit, but there's a channeled welt stitch there, single row, and these areas have what looks like a stitch, but I guess some of them, if you pull back the thing, they'll be glued. This one doesn't look like it's glued. I didn't do that with all the boots because at that price, they were all, lower or around the same price as this. Whether or not you're resoling them at that price range is kind of negligible. But if you spend $350 for a pair of boots, or even $250 for a pair of boots, I think you typically will want to know if you can resole them. And with Thursday boots, I have mostly heard no issues about that. I think if you wear them to death and the inner guts is all destroyed, again, you might need more of a rebuild than just a resole, and whether or not you can get that done conveniently at your local place or not, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of a separate issue. So they might still be semi-disposable boots.